Hello, I'm Rory Smith. Before you listen to this episode, please be aware it comes with a content warning. This episode is for adults only and includes conversations around child abuse, child sexual abuse, violence, substance use and other mature themes that some people may find disturbing and or triggering. This message is to empower you with the knowledge you need to make healthy decisions about how and if you should consume the content in this episode. Before listening, please read the episode description. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, welcome to Be My Guest with me, Rory Smith. When I first read Lisa's story, I felt truly sick to my stomach. And at times I questioned why I wanted to do this interview, because it's critical for me that Lisa's story is not used for entertainment purposes. So before we started the interview, it was important for me to set out my intention and my hope to Lisa for our conversation. And that was that I hope that society becomes more mindful of what can happen behind closed doors, and also that it helps people who've been abused or currently being abused to know they're not alone and that healing is possible. I have a personal real issue with the saying the good old days, because when we hear stories like Lisa's, it's evident they weren't the good old days. There were days when the word abuse wasn't used, especially from a child. Days shrouded in secrecy where authority wasn't questioned. Well, thankfully, society has begun to wake up from this derangement to give a voice to people like Lisa.
I feel that I must share my story because I want other victims to know they're not alone and people to be educated. There's always that fine line between details, not enough details, too many details, but it's not enough to say I was molested, I was abused. And people feel freed when they hear other people's stories sometimes. And, ultimately I see it as a fight between good and evil. And I know good will win, but I won't not do my part in my lifetime to do whatever I can to be part of good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let's hear your story then. You were the youngest of 3 children. You were born and raised in California by your parents. What did your family look like to the outside world?
Well, white, middle class, 1950s, my parents, my dad was a high school teacher, slacks and a, business casual shirt, right? That was his attire. My mom, business casual sort of suits and clothes, Mary Kay makeup. Her hair was always done. Our house was clean. It was a working class neighborhood, but it felt middle class at the time. Everything was clean, nice, orderly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And things changed for you when you were 5 years old. That was when your parents divorced. How did things change when your mum became single?
Yeah, so my earliest memory that I know for sure was my mom did try to kill herself. And I was looking over her. I didn't fully understand. And then one of the only times I ever met my grandmother, she came out and stayed with us. And then when my mother came back, she was party mom. Mm-hmm. My brother nicknamed her Hollywood Mom. And she started having singles parties, decked out the house, hors d'oeuvres. It was a big event. And so that was a big focus of her life. And, behind closed doors, my mother was very, she would rotate from being very rageful and screaming and very sorrowful, crying, sobbing. Someone would knock on the door and her whole persona would change. Welcome, Yeah, she was not well mentally. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that is when John became part of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about him.
Well, he was a handyman, and we had an air conditioner that it wasn't central air, it was just, in the wall. And he would take care of it, or, my mom had any needs around the house, he was there to be helpful. And he would take us kids out to ice cream sometimes, and, eventually he was able to start spending one-on-one time with me.
Mm-hmm. What was that time?
Well, John is a child molester. So I have a few different memories of him fixing things, me being on a big wheel in the backyard, just kind of looking at me, talking to me. He took me to ice cream,
Mm-hmm.
one-on-one. It used to be as a group, but I was familiar with him, and we'd go get ice cream. Why not? And he took me to a field and molested me in the field, threatened me, and asked me if I loved my mom. After he, most of the time that he was around, he appeared calm and nice, I guess. But when it was he and I in the car in the field, his persona changed. And there are sketchy memories that I have of that. I have a lot of memories, and some memories are not 100% clear, but bad things happened in the car. And then he asked me if I loved my mom, and I said I did. And he said if I said anything, then he would kill her. And I did not know what that meant, so I didn't say anything. Another time he came over, and gave me crayons and a new coloring book, and I was coloring, and he proceeded to molest me, under my clothes, touching me. And my sister walked in and caught him and was enraged, and I felt like I was in trouble because she looked at me angry, but she's a child too. And he acted like, shocked, and left. So those were my interactions with John until my sister told my mom and had us gather around the table with John and said, my mom appeared sort of calm compared to my sister, who didn't, and said, what happened? And I not only did I really not have the words, but I know that I couldn't speak. So I just avoided looking at John and looked away, and the problem went away, I guess. I don't remember seeing him after that.
How old were you?
5.
5. How old was your sister?
She would have been 10.
Wow. Was your father present at that meeting?
No. But my sister must have told him, maybe my mom, but he one day came over. Our days to see him were on Sundays, and I don't know if this was a Sunday or not, but I just remember being in the car, he and I, and him looking at me through the rear view mirror and saying, so I heard you were molested, just don't make a big deal about it.
And did he use that word, molested?
Yeah, that's what I remember.
To a 5-year-old?
Yeah.
But surely at 5 you don't understand what that means.
Right. Yeah, I have other memories of other things, and then I realized years later, oh, that's what was happening. Yeah, because at that age, I mean, what does it mean anyway? I think a lot of adults don't really fully understand all the variations of what molestation means, but yeah.
So, John, you never saw him again after that, but
Correct.
Then there was another man called Larry that came into your life. Tell me about him.
Let me just say, I did hear about John. My sister did tell me that he had a granddaughter that she went to school with that he abused as well. So, yeah, I don't know the extent, but I imagine, extent of victims. So Larry, John and Larry were both attendees at my mother's singles parties. And so Larry, unlike John, um, took an interest in my mom. He claimed to be my mother's boyfriend. And one of the activities that he wanted to do with us, that he did do with us, that was that we were going to start going to nudist camps. And I just remember that all of us kids, my sister, brother, and I were like, what? No, we don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And just being told that we're going to go, talked into it, whatever, going there, and then just that, you can imagine how awkward that would be. So, so that was a regular activity that we did as a family,
When you
quote
say
unquote.
when you say we and as a family, so Larry's not part of the family. Was your mother or father there?
My mother, so Larry, my mother's boyfriend, and
Mm-hmm.
my mother, my brother, sister, and myself.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
But everybody has to be naked. And so it's very weird, very awkward. I remember, again, I'm about 5 years old, not really understanding everything I saw. And it was quite shocking and surprising and distracting and weird. And after a while, you kind of get used to it. You're just playing. There's pools, there's a sauna. We would go in the sauna, watch people play tennis, kind of laugh about it.
Mm-hmm.
But there was two specific molesters that I remember. There was the kiddie pool, and then you had to earn dolphin tags to go into the bigger pool, and I hadn't earned those yet. You have to pass the swim test. But this hairy guy, just call him the hairy guy, would like us kids would just be lined up, and he would just pick us up and throw us in the deeper end. And he would, I say accidentally, but of course I realize now, not accidentally, would grab my private areas sometimes. So there was that, and I'm sure he did that with other children too. But then in the big pool, the kids just nicknamed the guy Doctor, and I have no idea if he was, but he wore goggles and he would swim under us, and just you could just tell he was always around looking, just always watching.
Mm-hmm.
But the children specifically, oh, the doctor, oh, like let's swim out of the way because like we knew he was looking at us.
Mm-hmm. So, with the other children being there, and when I talk to people about their experience as children, it's sometimes difficult for people to go back to that space to give an explanation even of feelings or how they felt. So this question mightn't have an answer for you, but as a child, did that come across as normal to you because there were other children there, or even at that age, did you have a sense that in the language of a child it might be weird or off?
So both. That was always kind of my internal dilemma. We didn't want to go get naked and just take your clothes off in front of each other and everyone's naked. And it didn't feel right, but also we were being taught that it was right, kind of like a sort of a religion in a sense. Like people who are nudists are higher level thinkers. You shouldn't
Mm.
feel jealous. You shouldn't. The people that don't behave like us, they're not as smart or spiritual or thoughtful. Was the message?
Almost cult-like.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes.
Mm. It escalated from there because that was Larry in public. What
Yeah.
was Larry like behind closed doors?
Yeah. Larry was very aggressive, very directive. So I remember one day, I don't know what we were talking about exactly, but he said that, I'm doing this for you and your sister, although I may have been the only one present, because I don't want you to grow up to be frigid. And I didn't know what that meant necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
I just was thinking about refrigerators and
Mm.
but so Larry, um, I don't really know what happened first, but I one day I heard noises in my mother's room, and they said, "Come in here, Lisa." And I was horrified. They said, "Sit down." And I know now I was watching them have intercourse, but I did not understand what was happening at the time. I just said, "Are you okay?" I was really worried about my mom being hurt. She said she was fine. Um, then Larry and my mom called us children into the kitchen once on the kitchen table. They did the same thing in front of all of us. I remember years later talking to one of my siblings that Larry asked my brother to take pictures. I didn't have that as part of my original memory, but one of them told me that. So he was taking pictures, Larry, at Larry's direction.
Mm-hmm.
Another time, I just remember Larry and my mother giving me a sex toy, and I didn't know. I had never seen that. All I know is that when the meeting, I guess, was over, I knew what it was and how to
Mm-hmm.
use it. I don't have the memory of like how all that went down exactly. Another time, Larry told me to get a bath ready for him. And so I was doing that. And my brother came out cussing at him. And my brother was a little cusser, And now, I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe he was trying to protect me. But fair enough, he was a pissed off kid.
Mm-hmm.
And Larry did not like that. That really upset Larry, and my Larry grabbed my brother by the ankles and stuck his head in the toilet repeatedly, with my brother screaming, of course, yelling, and I'm 5. Um, I don't know. I'm just standing there, and he finally lets him go, and Walter, my brother, runs off, and then I had to proceed to give Larry a bath, and he told me how to do it and where to do it, and there was focus on his private area.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Do you remember your mum's reaction to any of this?
no, just participated.
Mm-hmm.
Just, um, oh, I don't remember any reaction other than she just like, do it or come on, let's go. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But when Larry, I guess, broke up with my mom, he wrote her some lengthy letter, and she was angry, upset, crying, reading it to us, him saying he's not ready to get married and be a father to children. And she, in her usual form, raged at us children and blamed us, like, good for nothing children chasing everything good in my life away, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember feeling bad for her, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, she liked Larry, but also I didn't have, I didn't miss him.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. What was your relationship with your siblings around that time?
I always loved my siblings. I wanted to say love hate when you asked, but I didn't hate them. But there was a lot of violence towards me and kind of teasing, torturing, just getting hit, beat up. So, but sometimes, we would play. I would try to follow my brother around. He was very good with like making forts, and we lived around the orange groves, and just this was the 70s, so
Mm-hmm.
we were just all over the neighborhood and riding bikes and hide and go seek and tag. I
Mm-hmm.
was like the youngest, smallest in the neighborhood, so I never won. Um, but we had some really fun times, and then it would turn, in a violent way. And my sister too. I idolized her, wanted to be like her, but then sometimes they were annoyed with me. I know that my mother was a big part of that because she and my father because well, one time I don't know, just needing a hug, and I had the wherewithal to ask my
Mm-hmm.
dad for a hug, and he said, no, I'm not going to hug you because I don't want your brother and sister who are adopted to feel, like I'm favoring you.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, that does not make sense. Just hug them too.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how, there was that separation from my parents. Like they're adopted. I'm not because I was like some sort of, I prefer to call it a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
I was often called an accident, but or a mistake, but I am the bio child of my parents.
Mm-hmm. Did you get a
And
Did you get affection, if that's the right word, from your mother?
not really, no. I remember comforting her so that she would have her episodes. And my mother was a pianist, and sometimes she would like play all night crying.
Mm-hmm.
Other times, she would be angry, wake us up in the middle of the night. We had to clean effing kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but one time I remember she was in her room crying, and I went in to comfort her because she's so sad and upset. And she said to me, "Oh, I wish that it was just you and me. You're the only good kid," or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I know my brother and sister heard that. And I felt heartbroken for them, but I I don't know. I was trying to make my mom feel better.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously my parents were emotionally something. So but for her to me, there was not
Mm-hmm.
affections. My mom was sometimes in a good mood, like let's go out to eat or let's, go shopping.
Mm-hmm.
But
That wasn't enough.
no, at the time, I don't know that I thought my mom's not affectionate enough, but
Mm.
for sure, she was not nurturing to me.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about when you were 11 years old. And this is when Dawn and Jody came into your life.
Hmm.
How did they come into your life?
So my sister, I think, graduated high school early, and she somehow, that's amazing. She's very smart, and my grandmother lived in Indiana. She went on a train to visit her, and on the way back, she met Dawn and Jody. And my mom told me, your sister met these people on the train, and they want to take you to. And I said, well, I don't want to go to. And she said, well, you're gonna be going, and that's it. She sent me off with them
Just the
to go.
three of you.
Yes, I think it's possible my sister went with her boyfriend at the time, who
Mm-hmm.
was going to be her husband at some point. But it was just me, Dawn, and Jody in the truck.
Wow. They, they didn't introduce you to cigarettes because you were already smoking at that age.
True, yeah. So everybody in my house smoked. My mom smoked when she was pregnant with me. I don't remember my first cigarette, but I know by the age of 8, I was a regular smoker.
How
Um,
regular?
I'm sure before and after school on
Yeah.
a
Wow.
regular basis. My mom just kept cigarettes, and then also had my little friend Donnie. At the time, they had cigarette vending machines, and we were supposed to, our deal was you do it one time, I do it one time, but I was always too chicken a lot of times, so he would do it for me. But we always had cigarettes, and yeah, but never smoked in front of adults.
Until Dawn and Jody.
Yeah, so I get in the truck, and by the way, Jody's like 6'2". She's a basketball player. I love athletics. I was a softball player. And he to me just like kind of like looked like a creepy guy. But
Mm-hmm.
she was like really engaging, really charming, really friendly, and like fun. And
Mm-hmm.
so we ran out to the truck and got in, and she's like, sit here. I'm between them, and there was a pack of marbles on the in the car, and she's like, "You want one?" And I said, "Are you sure?" like,
Mm.
yeah, it's fine. You can smoke. And so I was like, okay. And so that's the first time I smoked in front of adults.
Wow. But then that even escalated because Don and Jody began to bring you back to their apartment, didn't they?
Yes. And can I just add that I did have a stepfather at the time that
Mm-hmm.
did give me affection. I just want to point out that, you know, he's what we would call, in the mental health field, a protective factor.
Mm.
He actually taught us children some good things, and he gave me appropriate affection, whereas he could have been a molester, but he wasn't. And
Mm-hmm.
so I do remember him saying to my mother at some point, I don't know if it was at this point because he was a merchant marine and he would be gone for long periods of time, not to send me with Don and Jody. But
Mm.
um with Don and Jody, the deal was, so my mom said you have to go with them so you don't fight with your brother on the weekends. And so it's kind of like it became like immediately a weekend thing. And as soon as we're in the apartment, you take your clothes off.
Wow.
So it became a game. Like you get in the apartment, okay, who can get them off the quickest?
Mm-hmm.
And then all clothes were just left at the front door.
Wow.
Larry always had like some good reason. Like, again, other people don't understand us.
Mm-hmm.
This is the better way to be.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't be ashamed of our bodies, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Always some sort of indoctrination.
And of course, as a young child, you're going to believe the authority figures. That's going to be implemented in your brain.
Yes, I thought there was something wrong with me.
Mm.
And, when I was little, I remember going to church with my mom, maybe my dad. Somehow I learned about God and prayer. Okay. And so I would pray and I always believed in God. Then when my stepdad came in my life, we were Buddhist
Mm-hmm.
for a while, still believed in God and, my childlike understanding of all of it. But I remember just thinking like, well, I guess there's something wrong with me that I'm not as comfortable, with this as Don and Jody. Like, I guess in my mind, I kind of had the idea that some people are more evolved,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just not evolved enough.
Mm.
That's how I thought.
Mm-hmm. Did they ever touch you inappropriately?
Yes. Um, so I don't know how quickly that, maybe the week later or something, but I'll just say that when we got into their apartment, smoking was fine at the time. Atari was new. I could play Atari. I was good at
Mm-hmm.
Atari. And Jody taught me how to make tacos. And we served Dawn. And then there was drinks. And I got to have my own drink of, an alcoholic drink. And so one day, I didn't want to be without Jody. I liked Jody. She was fun and cool, and but she worked. And so Dawn's like, well, let's go shopping. Maybe he picked me up and we went shopping, and then we were going to pick up Jody. I'm not sure, but we went shopping for my sister's birthday. And then in the truck, he says to me, hey, your sister said that you want to have sex with me. And I was like horrified, like, what? No, 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 no. Like, I racking my brain, what? Like, I really have no idea if she did or not.
Mm-hmm.
But why would she think? I said, no, no, I don't. And he's like, no, it's okay, kind of like smirking. And so like, again, like, I don't even think he's cute, let alone I'm 11
Mm-hmm.
and he's 40, 39, 40.
Wow.
Um, so I said no. And then also I was super worried that Jody would be mad at me. So
Mm-hmm.
I asked him not to tell her. Please don't tell her. I don't want to do that. And finally he said, okay, because I think I was kind of adamant, don't tell Jody.
Mm-hmm.
And we go to pick her up, and she gets in, and the first thing he says is, oh, Lisa wants to have sex with me. And, my heart just sinks. And she just, not missing a beat, says, oh, okay.
Wow.
And if I didn't say it out loud, I said, no, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but at that point, I don't really remember. We just went home. Then, the indoctrination started. We get home, the clothes come off, the cooking, the alcohol, and they just started talking me into coming into the bedroom with them. And I didn't want to, but Jody's like, come on, it'll be fine. Just watch at first. And so that's how it started.
Mm-hmm.
And I vaguely remember some pornography being on. By the way, there was other girls sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that were around, and sometimes it was just me.
Other girls your age?
Give or take, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Underage?
Yes.
Yeah.
And anyway, somehow, Dawn started playing Pretty Baby. I remember just being the only one around, or with Jody too. I don't know if other girls saw it, but I know there was pornography on at other times with other people.
Mm-hmm.
But, part of the indoctrination, for example, one time I remember, like, not wanting to go in the bedroom with them. And, Jody said to me, Lisa, if you had a real father, you would want to have sex with him. And I said to Don, like, do you want me to call you father? And he kind of just laughed a little bit, like, whatever you want to do, Lisa. Like, now that I'm saying it out loud, obviously it's not whatever I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, your mom's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know, just...
Where was your father in all of this?
Just living in his apartment in Riverside.
So you don't know if he was aware of this or not?
I believe he did know we were going to nudist camps.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he didn't have a problem with that. And Don and Jody, it's possible that he met them, but otherwise, around that time in my life, I don't know. He's kind of non-existent, I guess.
Mm-hmm. How did Dawn introduce you to a photographer?
So one day he said, I'm going to take you to go see if you could be a model. And I thought I was a horrendous beast. I felt ugly and fat. And I look back on my pictures, which nobody's ugly. Okay, I know that now. But
Mm-hmm.
I felt just like a horrendous girl. And, as an adult looking back on my child self, I was just a skinny little girl, just a little, like a child,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't feel beautiful or anything. And I told him, no, I can't be a model. But mind you, he had, and Jody did take a lot of pictures already. It was just kind of part of it.
Mm.
Sometimes they'd dress me up. I don't know. It didn't seem like anything like, hey, now we're going to officially take pictures. It was just the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I was just thinking about the movie Pretty Baby, how he would have me watch it over and over. And part of what he wanted with me was for me to willingly want to, have sex with him. And in that movie, Brooke Shields' virginity is auctioned off, and everybody is, yay, this is great. And they portray her like it doesn't bother her at all. It's not a problem. She's not wounded. It's totally fine. And so he had me watch that with me over and over. And so maybe some of the pictures were similar that were taken, but so that particular photographer, though, the one that I hadn't met yet, he said that, no, you're gonna go. You and some other girls I'm gonna take to see, what he thinks, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so we go and pile into his truck, and his truck has a shell on it and covered the back, and I'm in the back, and we're on the way. And at this point, like, this is in Santa Ana, California, which is, I don't know, 30 miles or so from Riverside. There's a big freeway in between, and I don't know where I'm at. I know I'm in Santa Ana, but I don't know my directions.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard a voice or tell me, memorize how to get there. And I didn't really think anything of it, just a thought in my brain, looking around out the window, and I felt it, heard it again, memorize how to get there.
Mm.
And so I did. It just felt like, definitely I have to do this. So I'm looking out the window, 7th Street, 14th Street, whatever. We pull up, and I can still see the building in my head, like an ugly tan brick building, outside stairs, and it's on the 2nd floor. And so we go up there, the photographer, it's a race, it's a game, all us girls run up, and I see on his desk table, there's a Rubik's Cube. At the time, they were popular. And I said, oh, Rubik's Cube, can I play with it? And his eyes lock with mine, and it just this dark feeling. I just turned away and sat down.
Mm.
And I just wanted to get out of there. And so each girl gets her pictures taken, and my turn, and it's just no clothes are off. Everyone's dressed. It's just a headshot, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. So
I guess the part of the story that continues to arise is, and the theme is, adults telling you this isn't a big deal.
yeah.
Did you believe it wasn't a big deal?
It meaning all of the abuse happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was taught it was not abuse. Like, I remember one time, I don't know if I was 10 or so, a commercial came on TV about child abuse. And it showed a child, I don't know, with a black eye and some yelling or something. And I was looking at it like, is that me? Am I abused? Nothing about sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember that commercial just being stuck in my head, and because I don't know, that day, because I was getting hit and yelled at, and by siblings, parents, neighborhood fighting and assaults. And Dawn and Jody were very calm, I suppose, smooth talking. But really, it literally never, John or Larry, Don and Jody, this is just nudists or just higher thinking people.
Mm-hmm.
Other people just don't understand. My mom's crazy and my dad's not a good dad. If I had a real dad, I'd want to feel this way, that way. I don't know. I definitely felt the conflict internally, but
was it that because you're a child, you just don't have the language for it, but you inherently falsely believe that, like you said earlier, there's just something wrong with me because all of this is happening to me?
Yes, I do believe that. I'm sure I felt that way, but really, I feel like mostly I felt like something was wrong with me because I'm not happy and excited to participate.
In
Sexual activities with Don, Jody.
Did you have any friends your own age?
I did, however, they became less and less in my life. My life became, I'm gone for the weekends. During the week, I had a couple of friends and they moved away. My friend Debbie moved up to Woodcrest. Donnie, I don't know where he moved. But yes, I did, but also, yeah, they just weren't very strong anymore, I guess.
Was your performance in school affected?
Yeah. So elementary school, I did fine. However, I had tons of absences from kindergarten on. But I was able to understand elementary school and pass. Once I hit junior high, I just had F's, except for PE. That was the one that I loved. But I just remember I can't, I was supposed to be sort of advanced, and I was in like this algebra or pre-algebra or something. I could not, nothing click. I just couldn't do it. Also, I was racked with anxiety, and so that just made everything worse.
Tell me about the day that detectives came into your school.
I got a note. I was at PE, and so I go to the office, and I remember seeing Miss Brewer, who I didn't like. She didn't like me. She always acted pissed off at me. And I have issues with school office with. I know there's a lot of nice ones, but that's where it must have originated. Anyway, and she's like, but she kind of had like a look on her face, a different look, like sad or something, and said, here is, these detectives, Detective Mendoza, Detective Rubio, here to talk to you. And I just...
What did they say to you? In part 2.
And he knocks on the door. I remember thinking, is he going to kill me?
What was your relationship in adulthood with your mum? Whatever happened to Dawn and Jody?
Well,
if any of the content in this podcast has brought anything up for you, please reach out to your local, national or international helpline or speak to someone you trust.